the wider electorate, which is not nearly as sympathetic to the president generally, you will, I think, see some erosion of his standing in the polls.
But there have been several cases against Mr. Trump, and obviously this has been going on for a long time, but it doesn't seem to have hurt his chances either in the Republican Party, but looking nationally at those polls.
Well, again, I think in the Republican Party itself, he has effectively captured that party. It is a Trump party. It's not, in any serious sense, a conservative party at this point. If you look at the policy platform of the Ronald Reagan Republican Party and the Trump Party, they're very, very different indeed. And so it doesn't surprise me too much that within the party, this hasn't hurt. He's, of course, portrayed this as an attack on him. He's being victimized. The government has been weaponized against him. But I think that's a harder case to sustain when you've got sort of the almost mundane nature of a criminal trial. People are very used to watching these, on TV. They're rather more dramatic on TV, of course, but the process tends to bring one down to earth. And as you see pictures of the president, again, sitting at the defendant's table, somewhat diminished for hours on end. Apparently, he dozed off sometimes during last week's proceedings. I don't think that's going to help him. Again, the group that believes that he is being victimized is already in his corner. The group he needs to appeal to are those who, on the whole, voted for him in 2016, but turned away in 2020. And those are folks who I think are going to be a little bit inhibited by the prospect of voting for a convicted felon, if that, of course, is where this case winds up. So again, if you look at President Trump's numbers, 2016, 2020, and now 2024, it's remarkably steady support. It is, but not a majority of the public, right? Joe Biden beat him relatively handily in the popular vote in 2020, and Biden needs to regain the support of those who have drifted away from him since then. Trump's numbers haven't gone up, Biden's have gone down, and so it's Biden's challenge to try to restore the youth vote, for example, or those on the left of the Democratic Party who have soured on him somewhat, but who are much more sour on the prospect of another Trump presidency.
You say his numbers have held steady, the former president's numbers have held steady for some years now. Do you think that means that some level of controversy, notoriety is baked into his brand? And so maybe when people decide to vote for him, they know what might come with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's priced in, as they would say, if we're talking about the stock market. People have already figured out what he stands for, and some have managed to convince themselves it's fine, or that they even like it. They like that he speaks out. They'll argue this case is just a personal matter. He had an affair, sure, and he tried to cover it up, but that was to avoid embarrassing his family. Prosecutors are arguing, of course, this is part of the broader trend of President Trump's interference in the electoral process, starting back in 2016 when Russia intervened, and of course in January 6th after the 2020 election, when President Trump arguably encouraged, at least, the insurrection on Capitol Hill. So the prosecutors are going to be arguing in the next couple of weeks that this is election interference. It's not a matter of personal embarrassment, and Trump will be arguing the other way. But again, you're right. I mean, I think that Trump supporters have bought in. They're not going to change their mind at the deepest level. That's why it was notable in the exit polling in the primary elections that there was a small but significant proportion of Republican identifiers who said that they would not vote for somebody who is a convicted felon. That's the sort of next step of this process if it happens that way. And of course, it may not. You're innocent until proven guilty, after all. But you have this case. You've got the January 6th related cases, both in Georgia and in Washington. You've got the classified documents cases. You have all the civil cases that have just wrapped up and where President Trump owes a lot of money. That's, again, what Biden will be seeking to remind those swing voters of. And maybe there aren't many swing voters. But again, if he can restore his coalition from 2020, that's enough, if barely, to win the presidency again.
This trial is expected to last some weeks, and Mr. Trump is expected to attend each day of court hearings. What impact does that have on his campaigns, but also fundraising at this crucial point in the run-up to the elections?
Yeah, it's important that this will be time-consuming, right? He'll be in the courtroom, we think, 4 days a week for as much as 6 weeks. And during that time, he doesn't have his phone. He can't be live tweeting the trial or live truth socialing, whatever you call that verb, on his own social media network. He is, as I noted earlier, under a gag order, in fact, from the judge, not to talk about the trial or the witnesses or the judge. He's been attacking people personally throughout. And so, I think his campaign team, of course, will be trying to monetize this fact. They'll be aiming especially at small dollar donors who have effectively pumped their savings into the Trump legal fund, which again, some will find bizarre, but is a